Welcome. You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Now, the Citizenship Amendment Bill continues to dominate the debate a day after it was passed in the Lok Sabha past midnight on Monday. The test now moves to the Rajya Sabha, where the bill will come up for vote tomorrow. Meanwhile, protests have broken out across northeastern states demanding the bill be scrapped. Sri Ravi Shankar is asking for the inclusion of Tamil Elams to the list of those who will be granted citizenship as well. And preparations are also on for legal challenges in the Supreme Court if the bill does go through the Rajya Sabha, which is the big question. So here is how the numbers are looking so far. The majority mark in the Rajya Sabha is 121. The BJP, along with the NDA and those who are supporting the bill, are currently poised to cross the halfway mark, except for two parties that may play spoil sport for the BJP. One is the Shiv Sena. Now, the Sena voted with the NDA in the Lok Sabha yesterday, but Sena Chief and Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has made it clear today that the BJP can't count on him, saying they will vote for the bill only if there is clarity. The Sena has 3 votes in the Rajya Sabha, and right now there is no clarity which way they will go. The JDU has also voted with the BJP yesterday, but prominent leaders of the party have been urging Nitish Kumar to change his stance in the Rajya Sabha today, where they have 6 members. Independents may also play a crucial role. So all eyes will be on the math tomorrow. Well, speaking to me now on the Citizenship Amendment Bill and the political positions that we've seen over it is Congress senior leader and MP in the Lok Sabha, Shashi Tharoor. Mr. Tharoor, thank you so much for speaking with us here on the India Development Debate. What's your sense? Do you think the bill will push through in the Rajya Sabha, and of course it easily did in the Lok Sabha?
Well, it remains to be seen. We'll certainly put up a stiff fight. But, you know, they seem to be very confident they have the numbers, as indeed they overwhelmingly did in the Lok Sabha, which is, of course, expected. But in the Rajya Sabha too, the composition does not look too unfavorable for them. So it's going to be, I think, a tough fight, but they may conceivably well prevail.
So then what happens to this tough fight that, you and other opposition members have been putting up? We heard your speech yesterday, but what beyond the speech? What politically are you planning to do, and by you I mean your party, to stop this from being written into law?
Well, certainly we don't have any legal means of stopping it being written into law, short of going to the Supreme Court. I'm assuming somebody will. I don't know that the party has decided to do that as a party, but certainly individuals are almost certain to do that and challenge this, the constitutionality of this, in the Supreme Court. It's so clearly violative of the basic structure. It so clearly seems to subscribe to Jinnah's notion of the two-nation theory rather than Gandhiji's notion of a united India where everyone of every faith is equal, that I find it difficult to believe that the judiciary will allow this to survive. Having said that, that's one way of going ahead. I think we'll also take the issue to the masses. I think we will have demonstrations, rallies, talks. On Sunday, my own All India Professionals Congress is planning to have meetings throughout the country to read aloud the relevant bits of the Constitution, to remind people of what has been violated. So we're going to try and keep some momentum going, but we should have no illusions about preventing the law from taking effect, because obviously the elections of 2019 and the state assembly elections, which determine the composition of the Rajya Sabha, those have determined what kind of laws are going to be written in this country, and one can turn around and you know, we can fight as hard as we like, but we have to turn around and admit that we don't have the numbers in Parliament to stop this.
Which brings me to my next question, very conveniently, in fact, that since they have the majority, and these are the people that a majority of the country has elected, this is also featured in their manifesto right from term 1, not just in term 2. So aren't they just fulfilling what they've promised the electorate?
Look, they can, in fact, in their first term, they only spoke about Hindus from neighboring countries. It was after we pointed out that this would exclude, for example, Sikhs and others whom they claim to also be defending the interests of, that in the second manifesto they expanded it to include other religions bar Islam in order to get the cover that they were protecting all persecuted minorities. My suggestion, my proposed amendment in the debate was to say, why don't you say persecuted minorities or persecuted members of any community from these countries, and then you will not be ultra vires the constitution. What is challengeable and indeed deplorable is the fact that they have specifically singled out certain faiths and omitted one, because there is no defensible logic. When you say that it's only non-Muslims who are facing persecution, well, you've left out Jews, you've left out atheists and Shintoists and God knows which other non-Muslims. And if you're talking about the fact that Muslims don't face persecution in Muslim majority countries, we know that's not true. First of all, there are people who are persecuted on the grounds of sect, like the Ahmadiyyas. We have people persecuted like the Hazaras and the Shias in Afghanistan. We have individual Muslims persecuted for their political opinions or their heretical views.
Yes.
Taslima Nasreen, Dawood Haider are two examples out of Bangladesh, so whom we have given asylum to in the past. So it's bizarre to say that no Muslim can feel persecuted in a Muslim country. Of course, we've had examples in our own history in the last 25 years. So it makes no sense, this bill, as an objective piece, other than, as you say, to fulfill a bigoted campaign promise.
No, that's not what I said. I said it fulfills what they said in their manifesto. Whether it's bigoted or not, I leave to the viewers' discretion in this context. But let me give you the counter argument based on what the Home Minister said all day yesterday.
Yeah, any religious bias is bigotry, my dear.
Okay, so let me give you the counter based on what the Home Minister said yesterday to the question of why leaving out Muslims. He says because in these three countries they are in the majority. Why only minorities from these three countries? Because he says that these are the ones where they're persecuted the most. He also says this has nothing to do with Indian Muslims here and doesn't change the secular nature of our country or our constitution. So to that point, what is the counter? What is the counter if the objective is, as the government claims and states, only to provide sanctuary to specific minorities who happen to be minorities in these three particular countries?
As I pointed out already, Muslims also, some Muslims, a handful no doubt, do face persecution because of their beliefs, their orientation, their gender, their political opinions, or their sect in Muslim countries. So to say that no Muslim can be persecuted in a Muslim country is wrong, and is demonstrably wrong with examples we ourselves have seen in India over the last 25 years. Secondly, as far as the Indian Muslims are concerned, under this, how do you prove you're an Indian Muslim? You see, half the population of our country, particularly the poor, those in rural areas, those in slums, have no documentation that they can use to prove where they were born, when they were born, where.
But you're referring to the NRC now.
We have members of Mr. Modi's Council of Ministers.
You are now referring to the NRC.
The two are undoubtedly linked. What I'm trying to say is, when Mr. Shah says in Parliament that he intends to extend the NRC throughout the country, just as happened in Assam, he is going to pick up a large number of people who can't prove when and where they were born. Now, in the case of Assam now, this bill is going to exonerate all the non-Muslims amongst the people who are found excluded and only trap the Muslims. And the same thing extended throughout the country would have the cumulative effect of disenfranchising large numbers of Muslims. So, like others of other faiths, they too will be unable to produce a valid birth certificate or other proof of when and where they were born. But all the others will be amnestied under the CAB, whereas this community, one community, will not be able to prove themselves.
They've denied this.
That's essentially the purpose of the exercise.
They've denied this. They've denied this, and for all practical purposes, this is a theory as of now. We don't know what's going to happen. They've denied it. Why aren't you believing their denial? They say the two have nothing to do with each other. The NRC is a separate exercise. The Citizenship Amendment Bill is a separate exercise.
Because history is replete. History is replete with examples where governments deny something at the beginning and do it a few years later. I hate to point to the history of Europe in the 1930s, but in the case of our government, they have not been embarrassed to flag their official ideology is Hindutva. They are committed to the idea of turning this country to a Hindu Rashtra, and they have not been embarrassed at all to express in all sorts of ways their contempt for and mistrust of our Hindu brothers and our Muslim brothers and sisters. And therefore, I have every reason, and the Muslim community has every reason, to have misgivings about their intentions, particularly when you find the CAB and the NRC being mentioned in the same debate in the Lok Sabha. There's no doubt that one is very much linked to the other in the Home Minister's mind.
The counter is that Muslims or any other groups who are persecuted from any other country or countries apart from these three can still continue to pursue citizenship in India or ask for refuge as per the normal process. So the CAB Amendment Bill, if it is passed, does not stop that process. Hence, what you are saying about Muslims feeling fearful is being called fear-mongering.
Listen, I happen to know something about this issue. I spent 11 years of my life working for refugees. Let me tell you, India is one of the very few democracies that does not have a national refugee policy or a refugee law or an asylum law. We have no process under which we can determine the legitimacy of an application for asylum on the grounds of persecution. We merely have the Home Ministry standard operating procedures which permit people seeking asylum and shelter in this country to be given so-called long-term visas, which range from 3 months to 5 years, but no more. And it's the tiniest portion imaginable of those who can actually apply for naturalization. The government can point to an Adnan Sami, but how many other examples can they point to? How many refugees have been naturalized other than Hindus from Pakistan, who've a few hundred of them have indeed been naturalized? Otherwise, when it looks at people coming in under the classic definitions of refugee status, the Indian government does not have a policy. And Amit Shah said openly in Parliament, when challenged by me on this, we will not have a refugee policy. We don't want a refugee policy. We would like to act on our own whims and fancies, in effect. He didn't say the last sentence, I'm putting it in his mouth, but that's what the Home Minister would wish to do. They will decide when it suits them whom to protect. And that's not the sound of a democracy speaking in today's 21st century world. We should have an objective refugee status determination procedure where people can apply, where there is a process, a quasi-judicial process in which they're heard, their story is told, they explain why they fear persecution. All this happens in every other democracy, and then you get your status. Right now, if a bureaucrat in the Home Ministry decides you deserve 3 months or you deserve 4 years, that depends on his whim and his moods of the day, and nobody can challenge it. There is no legal or judicial or quasi-judicial procedure under which you can do this. So I'm afraid this is all sophistry. And as far as the government's intentions are concerned, given their use of words like ghuspetia, infiltrators, and termites for the people who've come into our country, you can be sure that any such policy will be applied with the utmost unfavorable lack of sympathy towards any applicants. That's clearly the spirit in which they're speaking. Whereas in the old days, Swami Vivekananda could stand up in Chicago and say, I'm proud to speak of a civilization that has offered shelter to the persecuted of all religions and all nations. It's a far cry from that to the BJP today.
Where, do we stand as a polity in that case, Mr. Tharoor? Because this is, the Congress with its numbers, and we understand the number game, etc. But there are a number of parties who are not part of the NDA who have also backed the bill. What does it tell you about the political situation in the country right now? And then do you sometimes wonder if you're the one out of step?
Yes, indeed. No. In fact, it's going to be increasingly an article of pride to be out of step with this dangerous majoritarianism that the BJP has allowed to sweep the nation. I'm proud we're out of step. We're not alone. There were at least a dozen parties that supported our stand. The same kind of principles were articulated by them, including the DMK, the NCP, the Samajwadi Party, many others stood up, the TMC, many others stood up and spoke passionately. And these are largely parties who are strong in areas where our idea, the original idea of India still prevails, where people are treated equally, where your religion, your language, your food habits don't essentially determine your worth. Unfortunately, the demographics of our country have turned us into a place where the kind of open majoritarianism of the BJP, the Hindi, Hindutva, Hindustan agenda, has also been able to account for a majority of the seats in parliament. And therefore, they are indeed attacking the fundamental underpinnings of our constitution. Going right back to the freedom movement, as I said, they really are challenging the very notion that Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar tried to put, the first into our freedom movement, the second into our constitution. That's gone now. It's no longer a land of equal laws for equal citizens.
Well, thank you, Shashi Tharoor, for speaking with us on the India development debate on a subject which is undoubtedly contentious. We'll wait and see what happens in the Rajya Sabha tomorrow.